All right, so this is the office hours on mailings using CiviMail. And here on the screen is the agenda for all of the sessions, but using CiviMail, start with who's getting, basically walk through the process. I think CiviMail is pretty straightforward, but there's a couple little things it's helpful to know. Start with who's getting your email, then about writing the email, the issue with templates and making sure that your images aren't huge, using tokens, then the monitoring of the mailing, which is the report that you can do, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, which can be about anything. So to begin, so this is the front page you come into when you've logged into CiviCRM and clicked on the CRM button on the side. If we go up to mailings, you can start with a new mailing, take a look at what is ready to be sent but hasn't gone out, scheduled and sent mailings, and then archived, which I don't think anybody archives, but scheduled and sent can be useful. But for starters, I'm just going to go to a new mailing. And you name your mailing. This can be anything. It is what's going to show up on those list of mailings when we go to draft or scheduled and sent, but it is not the name that will go out to the people who receive your email. I highly recommend putting the name of your email to be something that's like the name of your chapter, the date, and then the name of the event, because then it's easier to track down. We can see some examples down here of what other folks have done. So Chicago has done a lot, but you see it can start to get into what's going on. Part of it is because the test chapter chapter leader is currently set up as a member of Chicago. So I have administrative privileges in Chicago, so that's what I'm seeing. On the national side, if I can get that to come up. Apparently that's in this one. We can see the range of titles that folks are applying. My version looks slightly different than what you see, but I was going to just get it to come up so you can see some of the titles of what folks are calling these. So I admit I'm guilty of not naming mine with YPT National, but can be helpful in tracking down the names of your events and making sure that it's yours. So, but whatever works for you. Some of the names are just really shorthands. I know that BWP is Beers with Peers, and some of them are obviously reused names, so you end up with a copy of a copy. So going back over to our test chapter leader. So we'll name this test mailing, very unique. I recommend that if you are going to be sending to several lists, then you can opt to remove duplicate emails, and that refers to the recipients. You have to pick someone to be part of it. The main way you're going to do this, if you started from the send a mailing module, is that you'll be able to see your mailing groups. So the Chicago mailing list is everybody who is on the distribution list for Chicago. That's friends, members, and it's not necessarily people in the Chicago chapter. It's everybody that is signed up to receive Chicago mail emails. Chicago primary is the folks that are actually in the chapter. And then all organizations is just the folks that are all the organizations, but most of those don't actually have emails associated with them. And I think it's only the ones that are associated with your chapter in some way, which I don't know how many organizations actually have a chapter, so I wouldn't use that list. The other thing that's really nice and is one of the ways that helps to try and, if you're just trying to email your members and friends separately, which was a question that came up on the last office hours, is that you can include and exclude recipients of mailings. And these mailings can be, well, you'll see that there are things that went to your chapter that aren't necessarily ones that you wrote. So for example, the election results for all YPT, that would be the mailing that I sent at the end of the last election announcing who had won. And I sent that to everybody. There's a couple others. I think otherwise it looks like everything, but here's a national email that went out. So there's a few of them, international. We don't send a whole lot, but those will come up on your list as well, and you can exclude those folks or include them. But you will only be able to mail to the people that you are able to connect with, which is, or I believe that's the case. So anybody that's on your mailing list. So starting from there, we'll say that Chicago wants to send an email to their mailing list. And if you had an odd situation where you wanted to send it to everybody who wasn't actually in Chicago, you could then exclude the folks that are listed as Chicago primary. So going to next. A few things that are useful to know here. I would always just leave alone track click-throughs and track opens. This is what feeds into your report, so you can see how many people have looked at your email, how many of them have clicked on the links. We don't usually use track replies, but the mailing visibility, this is one that's a little, the name is not very intuitive, but if you go and create a public page, this is actually what I would recommend as the default, and I'll eventually try and figure out how to change the default so that's the one that comes up. And you can always click this question mark and it'll explain to you. But if you include the mailing.view URL, this token thing, and the other one, it means that whenever somebody sees an email and that doesn't view right in their browser, they can say, have the option to click here to view this as a web page. And that can be quite useful if you have a bigger email or something with a lot of pictures, or it's just, you know, not sure that it's going to read right on people's systems. So going to that, the next step, make sure I'm staying with our agenda here. Yep, okay, is the templates and actually writing the content of the email. So you can upload information if you would like. So you have the option to upload content, and that'll bring up a screen to load the text in text or in HTML. But for most of us, we're going to be composing on screen. And you should always check the from email address that you're using. Make sure that you set it to be your chapter. If you want to be really different, you can pick somebody else's chapter, but you won't know any of the responses that you get. So, and if anything changes with your email, just let me know and I'll go in and change it in the system. And then there's a whole series of templates here. You can see that San Francisco has had quite a few. Chicago has this one. And all of these, if you select at the end, you'll have the option to create a new header, save as a new template. After you're done with it, which is how you end up with something up in that list. But since we're Chicago, we'll see what Chicago has got loaded as their template. So there we see they've got their Chicago logo in there and the list of sponsors down the side. And then some, just it was probably the first event email that they sent that had that event. So that's always the default text that comes up. And then in this case, it tried to load the mailing subject. So you could change it, and it would be, in this case, YPT Chicago test mail. And you can insert tokens up into the title. Usually you probably won't want to. And then you actually write your email. So something like this. But instead of saying, so the part with, let's see, we'll start with tokens. Instead of saying, Dear YPT Chicago members and friends, we could actually have it so that everybody who's got a name in the system, and almost everybody does, not all of them, sometimes if it's just an email, that will be blank, but you could say Dear, and then you have the option to insert tokens. And from there, I'm going to put the first name. So put that in there. So now it says contact first name. So when this email actually goes out, that'll say Dear, their first name as it's listed in the system. And then at the very bottom here, one thing that we enabled earlier and can do, oh, now I have to remember what that thing was called. I don't send mailings that often. There we go. So we need that, we can put that token into our email. Sorry, I don't have the world's fastest internet connection here. Downside of not doing it at the office. Okay, so we could say, use this email as a web page, and then insert that as a token, which are always surrounded by brackets. And there's a whole host of other things that you can add in about a person. If you just go hunting through the options on the tokens, it's mostly things about them. But it's really useful, for example, if you're trying to encourage people to create accounts for the CRM, you can say, your email that we have in the system is this. So when one of the emails that I send out is now a welcome email, and that one says, for example, if you want to create an account on YPT so you can log in and access the system, sign up for events, you should go ahead. The email we have on record for you is this, and you should use that to create your account, and it will automatically connect it. So just something that might come up that you want to do. The other thing with, the blue bar is always, it's in the chapter templates, design your own. This is good. You need to have the domain address always. You can't send it if it doesn't there, and you have to have an unsubscribe option. So we have the opt-out URL and the unsubscribe URL. The other thing that a couple chapters have run into is that their image turns out to be really huge. So if we go to, it depends on how the Outlook is particularly bad at this, at how it reads the content of the email that comes in. And so someone may have uploaded a really high-res version of the logo, but set it so that its image size, much like you would in Microsoft Word, is smaller than the full size of the image. But the program, when it sends it, doesn't trim off the excess size of the file of the image just to keep what it needs to be the size it is. It sends the whole thing. And Outlook and a couple other offending programs tend to just ignore the fact that the email is saying show this as a really a 1 inch by 1 inch picture, and instead shows it as like the 3 foot by 3 foot image, and it looks really crazy. So if your chapter is one of those that is having a problem with that, the important thing is to go in and take a look at what the picture that you've uploaded. So Chicago has uploaded theirs correctly, so the reset size is coming up as 300 and 120. So, but if you had one that was too big, it would come up wrong. And actually, if I go to the old one in DC that I know I just recently helped fix, I think we can see an example of that. Note that if you change the template that you're using, it will get rid of everything you've done in there. So here's one where it looks like it's normal sized, and you go in and it says 300 by 160, totally very similar to what other folks are using. And then if you click reset, it'll bring it to its original, and that's this immense image that shows up when people get it in their email. Not surprisingly, this kind of annoys people. So what you have to do is actually upload a new image, and you can do it in any program. Microsoft Paint will do it for you and just rescale the image down to the actual size that you want, which is then what chapters like Now DC in the updated template and Chicago, and I'm sure most of you have, have done, so that now it comes up and it is the same size as the image that you want to load. We don't really do anything with the header and the footer. Oh, I should go back. Well, I won't do it here, but you should always send a test of your email to somebody, yourself and probably a second person, and that way you can do a check of the grammar. You can also do the drop down, but this is not going to, if we had some tokens in there, it wouldn't load the content. So if you want to make sure that your tokens are loading, so here you can see some of them are, the unsubscribe link and stuff. And actually, if we go back and do the view this as a web page, we should get a link that way. So there you can see, this will bring it up as an actual normal mailing that you can view. I don't know if it'll load because we haven't sent it, but there you go. So it comes up like that. So if somebody's on a screen that does, their browser doesn't support, their email system doesn't show it right, they can click on that. So that's a good one to include, and I'll update the materials that we have to show that you can use that. So the last step is then to actually schedule to send the mailing, and we obviously are not going to send this one because it's going to look really funny if we did, but you can either send immediately or schedule it to go out at a time that is more convenient. So I probably don't want to send it to go out at 8:20 p.m. or 7:20 Central Time on a Monday night. I might rather have it go out at 9 a.m. when most folks are probably at the office, and a lot of people, we send these off to their work emails. So, and the other thing it'll tell you over here is the total number of recipients. So going back up, pretending that we had, we'll say continue later, which is actually going to take us to the page with all of the draft mailings that have not been sent. So it'll take us to everything, including those that have and have not been sent. So something you can go in once you have sent the mailing is go take a look at the report. This is where you track what has gone on. So it attempted to send it to 281 people. It made it to almost everybody, 279. So that means that there are 2 bad emails in the account. So you can actually see who those are by clicking on the report. Let's see. And here it automatically, I was hoping to see who it didn't support, but here you can see that it's running the report and it's showing the delivery status successful. If we want to change that, we can go up to the report criteria and say delivery status is equal to bounced. Hit preview report. And it's going to show us that it looks like Kathleen Woodruff and Gregory Adelberg are both having problems. I don't know why it's showing them as successful and also having bounced. But you can play around with these and find information there. So if we go back to what we hear, so 65 people opened it. 3 of them clicked the links through. There were 2 bounces. Oh, that's the report we should have clicked. Sorry, I should have gone to that one. Nobody has chosen to unsubscribe or opt out as a result of receiving this email. And it shows how long it took for it to run and that it was delivered. Here it was who it was sent to. You can see what link they clicked on. If you want to see what the message looked like, this is where you find it. It's the only way you're going to find it without going in and reusing the email. And it always has a ton of white space. It pops up in a small box. But that was the information that they included when they sent this out. And that just ran last week or so ago. Shows what was attached, the messages that were on there, who sent it, what they were supposed to reply to. So basically everything is there to take a look at. So that's what I had for CiviMail. And I'm happy to take questions about this point about either CiviMail or anything CiviCRM.
Sorry, I was just talking to the muted phone there for a second.
Oh.
I didn't have many questions. I figured this out for the most part on my own before, and we used it actually for the election mailings back in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
But lately we've been just using our Gmail account lately and a long email list we had. But like I think I mentioned last week, part of that problem was just we don't have all of our contacts in the CRM system yet.
Right.
But I think as soon as I get that all rectified, it'll make more sense to use the mailings again.
And have you been able to figure out how to do the mass upload?
I haven't tried yet. I didn't have a chance this weekend.
Okay. Well, do let me know if you have problems with it. I'm happy to help with doing that.
Okay, I will. Yeah, that's on my schedule for this next week. Or at least for part of the weekend before Easter rolls around.
Yeah.
One question I had was, I guess just sort of, for your opinion here, have you seen any particularly good templates for the emails? I think early on, before many people were using it, when I was trying it, there weren't many templates in there, and I had some trouble just getting it to format up nicely. And I think that's part of the reason why I kind of gave up, was I couldn't get anything decent looking to come out of the system. I mean, Chicago looked like they had a pretty good, simple setup there that worked.
So have you've seen that there's the one where you can create your own? It's supposed to be just a very basic. I'll go back in and sorry, get this one to come up. There we go. So one of the things is that there is right down here, template for chapters, design your own.
Okay.
So this has some basic.
I think I did see this early on.
This was created I don't quite remember, but it was fairly early on. But it was that's what I think a lot of folks have been working from. I'm not actually sure what everybody's using, but we can surf through. Looks like there's an error in the logo there. Um, so I don't
Yeah.
know what. Oh, there's New York's. I have a feeling they maybe have a very large. I wonder if they've got a big image. That or my computer is just being small. Nope, they have a very large image. um, so maybe talk to New York about the size of their image. I don't actually know who. I've heard that some have some really kind of interesting approaches. Obviously, Austin has gone for a larger text size, but most of them just put their particular
Okay.
logos up at the top. Um,
Okay.
so, but you're always welcome. All of these should come up for you, all the different cities. So you can always just take a look, kind of.
Okay. I have to. Yeah, it's been a while since I looked through, and now that there's many more,
Yeah, we've got a lot more
I'm
cities
also
that
jealous
are.
of all the logos now.
Yeah, most of the chapters now have their own logo. So looks like Phoenix hasn't necessarily changed anything. Um,
We might have one in there, but I can't remember if I saved it as a template or not.
it depends what
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
got. Oh, here's a Pittsburgh event, Pittsburgh basic meeting.
Okay.
Um, and if you're ever looking for the logos, we do have them um, stashed in places that you can find them. This looks like it might be a different version of the header
Yeah.
logo. Um, nice. I like that you guys. I like that when the chapters put pictures into the actual emails. I think it makes them more interesting. Um, okay.
Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. I'll have to try some of that more. I was trying. I can't remember what the instruction said when I read it at first. What's the deal with the sponsors on the side? Is that only if we have sponsors for our chapter?
If you have local chapter sponsors, you can add your own there. I think we have a note in here. Um, so if you should include the national sponsors over here.
Okay, so
And if
we
you
should
have
include the
chapter
national ones.
sponsors, yeah, if you have chapter sponsors, they can go up here, and it can be YPT Pittsburgh is sponsored by. Um,
Okay, I'll have to make sure we keep those in then.
yeah, if possible, because we do promise that they go out on the blast. It's part of their sponsorship of us.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the blue box
Oh,
down there is pretty much covered. So
that's pretty much standard. That was the other question I had. One of the tokens down in the box at the bottom, it lists the national address for YPT. Is that a standard thing that we can't change?
uh,
Hey, I
I'll
don't
have to
remember
ask.
what I did with it before, but
I think you could just not use the token and just put your address in there.
okay. Yeah, maybe that's the best way.
So you could do
Or
Young Professionals in Transportation Pittsburgh, and then
yeah, I can't remember early on if it might have been blocking me when I tried to delete the token. It said you had to have the token somewhere in the
oh,
email.
you know what? That's what it is. You do have to have the token in there, so you're kind of stuck with it. But you could also you could include the Pittsburgh address as well.
Maybe we'll do that in list two. Yeah, I thought it was a little confusing, but I think we left it in there because we had to.
Yeah, there's two that have to be in there: domain address and the
And
unsubscribe.
unsubscribe.
And so you can't get around those ones.
Okay.
And then Amy, the prior membership chair, is much more tech savvy, or rather, she works a lot in CRMs and knows what's going on. So this is her advice down here at the very bottom, which you should delete after you adopt this design.
Okay.
Um, so she's noting that you should make sure that you check it. There's a note here about sending a plain text version. Um, So you can take the content of the message that you put up here and then put it in the plain text format. So if someone doesn't get the HTML version, they won't get all sorts of craziness in there.
Well, that's good.
So I'd forgotten about that part. So that's a good one to know. And if you make a tweak to your template, you're always welcome. It'll give you the option to update the template or save as a new template.
Okay.
So for like DC, where they just ended up doing the template dash updated, they could have just updated the existing template and overwritten it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's one of the things we just have to spend more time on because I think there weren't a lot of examples early on. But
Yeah, I think things have come along. A lot more folks are using it, um, and it's nice that you can see what everybody else's templates look like because then there's
yeah.
um, yeah, I think it's fun to see, and it's just fun to see all the logos that have gotten uploaded. Oh yeah, Nashville went for something completely different. So there you can see an example of where they've gone for a local sponsor.
Okay, that's good.
But they went for blue boxes.
I tried to do something like that, but I can't quite remember HTML. So
Though this one's a WYSIWYG, so it's actually usually pretty good. I think
okay.
table properties. So if you right click in there, it'll bring up a lot of things. I'm not entirely sure how they changed the color of it, but I'm sure it's an option in there.
Okay.
And then if you do remember how to code HTML, you can go in and actually play with the coding. The nice thing is it will have already done most of what you need, and then you can just go find the thing where it's like, you know, or even just go look in and see where um, um, what Nashville did to change theirs. I'm sure somewhere right here, somewhere close in, there's a
Something about the color.
yeah. I'm not seeing it, but somewhere up here, there it is, background color number. They found it right there.
Yeah.
So, um, but there is also that's the highlighting. Yeah, it's in there. I also have not spent much time playing with it. So,
Okay.
did you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if anything comes up, please let me know.
Was a quiet night.
Yeah, I think mailings maybe enough people know. I hope folks will come out for the
Yeah.
events. We've got some different stuff going on in there. Um, and
Yeah.
just
That's one we haven't used yet. So if I'm around next week, I'll dial it.
okay. Well, I will turn off the recording at this point.